One Piece manga chapter 992. Definitely one for the books because we got a really good action sequence with Kaido and the Scabbards, probably the best yet. And it really shows you that when Oda puts his mind into fights, the fights are usually very good. And he definitely showed us that in this chapter, even though it was kind of a one-sided beatdown on Kaido's part. The paneling, the action, and the teamwork with the Scabbards, it was all really good. But before we get into this chapter, let's start from the beginning. We started the chapter with a conversation between Perospero, Big Mom, and a little bit of Marco at the end as well. And a lot of what was said here was very interesting, as it leads to speculation that a lot of us have been talking about, as well as things that we knew was eventually going to take place or happen. Now, the first and the most interesting thing about this scene here is that Big Mom tells Perospero about the alliance with Kaido, and that was something that she brought up to Kaido by herself. And again, it really goes back to the speculation that a lot of us in the community have been talking about, and of course that is the plot line of betrayal between the Big Mom and Kaido alliance, because at the end of the day there can only be one King of the Pirates, and I am 100% sure that Kaido is also aware of this, given the many things that has happened in the past with him and the Rocks Pirates, and how that went about. So I am pretty sure that Kaido is also wary of Big Mom. So honestly, it goes both ways with Big Mom and Kaido, but obviously the person that comes on top is the person who played better cards, right? So with Big Mom and Kaido, the alliance is only a temporary one, because once they defeat the common enemy, there's going to be a tussle between them once again. We also see that Perospero is also happy with Big Mom's intentions here, because it aligns with his own agenda as well. So very interesting stuff here. But it seems like Marco and Perospero initially had an agreement to team up against Kaido, but since that is now broken down, is Marco going to fight Big Mom? Because that's technically what should happen right now, because Big Mom is still in the alliance with Kaido, even though it might be a facade for the time being. And it might very well happen, because we also see Carrot making her way to Perospero, because we know that there's been a lot of build up between those two, especially when you bring Whole Cake and Pedro dying there. Carrot feels like she's responsible in dealing with Perospero, because he was, Pedro was pretty much her mentor. And I am pretty sure that this is a matchup that a lot of us saw coming, so it's not exactly surprising. And I will say that I am looking forward to Carrot's Sulong form again, because her transformation, I feel, is very comparable to the Duke's, if not better, but that's just me in terms of appearance anyways. So that's something I'm looking forward to. And I also feel like Marco's dialogue with Big Mom here is very interesting, whereas Big Mom feels like Marco and the remnants of the Whitebeard Pirates are still somewhat upholding Whitebeard's will to some extent, in which Marco responds by saying that everyone that's remaining, and pretty much the remnants of Whitebeard's pirates, is pretty much free at this point. So in essence, they can do whatever they feel like, which I thought was very interesting coming from Marco. But it does seem like a battle between Big Mom and Marco is going to take place, and Marco doesn't seem too worried about it. So very interesting stuff here in the beginning of this chapter, and it's definitely leading towards more things that's going to happen moving forward. Now we move on to Black Maria, and she doesn't seem to be taking this seriously, and I think it's because she knows that the odds are stacked up against the Straw Hats or the Alliance, given that the forces that Kaido has is just overwhelming at this point, including the fact that Big Mom is also here. And it's very interesting because they got an order from King to stop the Straw Hats, but then again, Black Maria wasn't really involved in a lot of that whole plot line of taking the positions of the All-Star, because it doesn't seem like she's interested in it. And so we get a musical with her, and she's kind of narrating or singing over the battle between the Scabbards versus Kaido, and I feel like this is a moment that would really go well with the anime format, because in the manga it doesn't really bring the scene into life, because music is being played while the Scabbards are fighting Kaido. So it sort of reminds me of the musical end at the end of Whole Cake Island, in which Big Mom, after eating the cake, there was this musical in which we saw that most of the Straw Hats and the Germa forces were being destroyed by the Big Mom pirates. So that's what I think is happening here, and again, it's probably going to be a lot better in the anime format once the anime does catch up, which will be a very long time. But regardless, this is a scene that I'm looking forward to, and it's very obvious that this music is in reference to the Scabbards. But from what it seems like, Yamato is eventually going to run into Black Maria, because it looks like they're in the same vicinity, and that is where a battle might actually take place between these two. And maybe maybe then we might actually get to see what her Deviford ability is, because Oda has been teasing us with the last 3 of the Flying 6. It seems like we might get Black Maria's next, and then Sasuke, and then finally Who's Who, just because his portrayal seems to be the highest of those bunch. So I think it's going to be interesting with her Deviford, because Black Maria is like part giant, and she also has horns like Yamato. So there might be a correlation between those two, because I know people were speculating if Black Maria was Yamato's mother, but that doesn't seem to be the case because the age gap isn't that far apart. But they do have similar horns, which I think could be a correlation between those two. Maybe they're a part of the same demonic race. We don't know much about that yet, so we might get something there. And we also do know that those horns aren't fake like the Gifter. So there's a lot that can be done here. We then move on to the battle between Kaido and the Scabbards, and for the most part there is no dialogue here and just raw fighting. And this was amazing regardless of how you feel about the power scaling aspect of it. The action sequence was really good, and I think the highlight of this chapter for me was the first panel that we get when the battle starts, with the Scabbards on one side and Kaido on the other side coming to clash. And I think that was probably the best panel for me in this chapter, because it gives you a clear sense of the battle that is taking place, and because there wasn't any dialogues, it made the panels a lot cleaner and not as cluttered as some of the fight sequences were beforehand. And a question that is usually brought into light is, did we underestimate the Scabbards? Now for me personally, I think it makes sense for the already established commander level Scabbards like Inu, Neko, Kamawatsu, Denjiro, and Ashura Doji, because we know that these 5 were left behind for 20 years, and during those 20 years they became stronger. And from what we can gather, these 5 were pretty much commander level based on portrayal and feats. I could also fit Kinemon in there as well to some sense, because he was shown in a way that made it seem like he was the leader of the Scabbards, and of course being the leader, he has to be the strongest or somewhat comparable to the strongest of the Scabbards. The people that I didn't really expect this from was Raizo and Okiko for the most part, but then again, looking back on the fight, it seems like they're acting as support more so than actual offense, because it seems like the strongest of them are doing most of the damage, right? And it's crazy because we did have Raizo pulling off a crazy attack from a scroll, something that we've never actually seen before from Raizo, and he apparently had a scroll that can actually store fire within it, and is then able to release that fire back onto Kaido. And so that was something I was not expecting from Raizo, because we haven't seen anything from him, even though he was a ninja. So it's kind of cool that he's showing ninja traits or ninja abilities, because we never actually saw that from him before. But again, if you really think about it, having 9 people rush you in a combined team effort with amazing combination attacks, and also the fact that 5 of these guys are around commander level characters, I'm not exactly surprised that Kaido is getting pressed, right, or getting stressed out, just because you have to focus your attention on several individuals at the same time. And Kaido isn't exactly the fastest in his full dragon form, which again I think is the weakest of his forms, because it's just not a very convenient form to fight a lot of people with, because he's very large in this form. He's kind of slow. Granted, he does have a lot of destructive force, but that can be easily evaded, as we saw with Luffy versus Kaido back in the Flower Capital. So for me, it seems that Kaido hasn't really kicked in the gears yet. For the most part, he's only used the Boro Blast and a lightning attack in this chapter as well, but apart from that, he hasn't really used anything else. So again, it seems like Kaido's full dragon form is not him going serious yet. I think that's kind of obvious. I think Kaido will most likely revert to base form, and then finally hybrid form later on, maybe when Luffy shows up. So there's ways to go, and it seems like the Scabbards are using everything they have, and Kaido is still somewhat chilling. And again, I've said this before, but I think we are going to see the full power of a Yonko in this arc, a Yonko without any restrictions, and I think that Yonko is Kaido. And I also feel like there's still some mystery behind how the Scabbards are able to hurt Kaido, because Kaido is still bringing up this as he mentions that none of their attacks resembles that of Odin. So it seems like there's still some mystery behind it, and a mystery that Oda seems to be building up upon to possibly give us more answers as we move forward, because we know that Odin actually did try to train the Scabbards in Ryo, so there might be more there. And obviously this could be tied to the inherited will, in which we are seeing it take a form in a more physical way rather than the usual dreams and ambition. So very, very interesting. So hopefully Oda does get to the bottom of that. But that is pretty much it for this video, guys. Comment down below what you guys think is going to happen moving forward. Like the video if you liked it, and subscribe for more One Piece content on this channel. It is Pharaoh, and I will see you folks later. Peace.